So, Paris really was a game changer in many regards. And I'll give my personal take. So the first thing about Paris, I think in Indonesian we would call it a wayang kulit. It was done. The puppet show was started a long time before Paris, and in particular, there are two features that made Paris very different. One is it was no longer about an us and a them, but about we. So it became really that countries came to this very much with what we are going to bring to the table, recognizing that others would come with their own commitments. And this was in the form of the intended nationally defined contributions as a way to express commitments coming in even to the process. And the second feature of Paris that's very different is this principle of it's a framework that applies to everybody. There are 195 different countries, but the framework within which action will be done is shared and joint. So that's very important about Paris. Now, Paris, other thing that happened in Paris is these actions that were put on the table may not have added up to the ambitions, but at Paris, leaders reaffirmed, in fact, went beyond reaffirmation of a commitment to climate that way extends beyond what was on the table before. In particular, the 195 countries agreed that we would move to net zero carbon in the second half of the century, and that on the mitigation side, the goal was to hold temperatures well below 2 degrees and preferably to 1.5 degrees. There were also commitments, important commitments made on adaptation, on loss and damage, and yes, on finance. And I think what is particularly interesting about the finance piece was for a long time the finance piece had been really paralyzed in what are you going to give to us. And here there was a recognition that finance was about, the success of finance was as an enabler of bringing about an accelerated transition. So the discussion on finance was not about the billions or the hundreds of billions, but about how you move trillions of dollars that are needed to move towards a low carbon transition. There was also a focus on capacity building, on technology transfer, very much on verification and transparency, on a global stock take, recognition that this was every 5-year process and that every 5 years you would have to ramp up the ambitions. So I would say it was really a way of coming together. But what's also very important about Paris is it's not just 195 countries that entered the discourse. It's a set now of not only countries, but of businesses, of civil society, of public citizenry. And indeed, if it had not been for global citizenry, I don't think leaders would have come under the pressure that they came under in Paris.